What is going on, everyone? It's Basic67 here. Welcome back to some more Danganronpa 0. We're gonna go ahead and read the next 3 chapters of this light novel. It's getting really good. We just met 2 new characters, and I'm really excited to see how this all pans out and see how their character development really kicks in, because you know Danganronpa has always been known for that character development. But anyways, if you would like to join the Ultimates, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and become one of my Ultimates. So let's go ahead and jump back into Danganronpa 0, Book 1, Chapter 3B. But it's not like I'm forgetting things because I want to. There's a sickness in my brain, right? I can't help it, so be nice to me. No, I don't think we can just call it sickness and be done with it. Matsuda-kun shook his head lightly. The human memory is a complicated thing, and there is much we don't know about it. It's still very much a black box. Your situation isn't just a simple sickness that can be dealt with like any other. As he explained, he stuck suction pads all over my head and my face. The cords running from the suction pads were attached to the machines on the trolley. There's a part of the human memory that we call Episodic Memory. It stores your personal experiences, what you see and hear. The area of the brain responsible for it is called the hippocampus. If something goes wrong there, the brain experiences difficulties in creating and storing new episodes. There's a famous old example about a patient who had the hippocampus removed in surgery and also lost all ability to form new memories. After that happened, there's been much research done about the exact role of the hippocampus in relation to memory. That said, even if your hippocampus is malfunctioning, you won't lose your ability to remember or learn procedural memory. Tasks such as riding a bicycle or using tools. You won't remember the episodes related to those tasks though. For example, you may remember how to ride a bicycle, but you won't remember how you came to be able to ride them. That's it in a nutshell. I see. So that's why even though I'm very forgetful, I still know how to read and write in my notebook. I held the notebook in question with both of my hands and nodded thoughtfully. Ryoko Aronashi's memory notebook. That notebook was memory itself for me. My one and only indispensable trusted item. As long as I have it, I can probably live a regular life, much like regular people. That said, it seems that this school is a little late in accommodating the memory challenge, and that I am still facing many difficulties on that front. For example, during exams I'm forbidden to look in notebooks, which caused my grades to plummet and got me suspended from... What? I've been suspended from the school? I yelled, looking up from the notebook. Just because my grades are bad? That's not fair! You should be glad they haven't kicked you out completely. I had to negotiate with the school to make that happen. You stood up for me? My heart skipped a beat. I'm so happy! You really are fond of me, aren't you? Matsuda-kun snorted. I just need you here as a research subject. Nevertheless, Matsuda-kun went out and helped me. And that's good enough. Your case seems to involve a failure in the retrieval of long-term memory. I think something went wrong with the synapses connecting the neurons somewhere in your brain. But I need more time to investigate the problem more thoroughly before I can really understand what's going on. I don't understand most of what you said, but at least I haven't been expelled. If I got expelled now, where would I even go? I don't have anywhere to go to outside the school. I've forgotten everything else. I don't even remember my family or any old friends I may or may not have. If I get expelled, I'll also end up away from you, Matsuda-kun. Being separated from Matsuda-kun was the thing I feared most. My body shivered a little just speaking the words out loud. You shouldn't worry too much. Matsuda-kun turned to face me and spoke bluntly. You're a valuable research subject and I don't plan to lose you. At least not at the moment. But you might change your mind later? I'm happy, but I have to remember not to be too much of a burden from now on. Don't complain. You should be honored that you're participating in such important research, Matsuda-kun chided me, and then continued his explanation. In order to understand why memory loss occurs, we need to understand the core elements of our brain's memory storage apparatus. Once we make advances in that field, it opens the doors to a wide array of possibilities, like improving the quality and longevity of human memory, or developing medicine to prevent memory loss. In the future, we might even be able to retrieve memories like we do data on a hard drive. We'll be able to create devices that back them up, or destroy parts of them freely. There's already research going on that front abroad. They managed to erase lab rats' long-term memory by manipulating their M-zeta kinases enzyme. I see. In fact, I didn't see it all. But for the time being, I had to be agreeable. In any case, I'm just super happy that I can be of any help to my beloved Matsuda-kun. Your brain is empty. So are the words it produces. You really are an empty woman. I didn't quite understand if he was serious or just making fun of me. But that's just how Matsuda-kun is. He always insisted I should take care of myself. He may be cold to me, and he may be blunt, but he doesn't treat me with fake sympathy. It's depressing when people do. So I'm grateful for his attitude. I may be empty, but I'm still super happy. I raised my voice, refusing to be discouraged, but Matsuda-kun's reply was almost a whisper. Well, I can't deny you're helping me out here. One doesn't get his hands on such a rare case very often. Did you say rare? I like the sound of that word. I felt as happy as if I was being praised. So what's rare about me? Tell me! Stop acting like a child. Matsuda-kun let out a big sigh. I don't want to tell you. You just get annoyingly excited. What's so wrong with that? Tell me! My insistence finally paid off. You don't often see someone possessing such a superb, brain-intensive talent as you do affected by memory loss. That's why you're such a rare case. Talent? Brain-intensive? Nothing came to mind. It's fine if you don't remember it. It was really irritating when you used that talent of yours. I'm warning you. Don't ever try to use it on me. You got that, dung beetle? I didn't quite get what he meant, but his dung beetle comment stung my heart a little bit, so I couldn't help but nod in agreement. Well, I don't really care as long as I get to spend these intimate moments with you, Matsuda-kun. I should be thankful that there's sickness in my brain. I told you, it's not really a sickness. Matsuda-kun stuck even more suction cups to my head, as if he was trying to hide my grinning face. Nevertheless, it's admirable that you can take this so easily. Your condition is no laughing matter. Shouldn't you be at least a little worried? What is there to be worried about? I mean, said Matsuda-kun in amazement, aren't you worried whether these symptoms are ever gonna go away? His words surprised me. It wasn't like Matsuda-kun at all, asking a question like that in such a serious voice. I'm not worried at all, I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. I mean, the only me I can remember is the me that is lying here on this bed at this very moment. I can't remember anything from that before I lost my memory, so it's not like I have anything to compare it to. That's why I don't see my forgetfulness as a disadvantage. It's just a part of who I am. You don't see it as a disadvantage? But aren't you even worried about how this memory loss started? Or when it's going to end? Not at all. In fact, I'm much more worried that if I suddenly get cured, I wouldn't get to see you anymore, Matsuda-kun. The room suddenly turned quiet. After the silence continued for a while, Matsuda-kun broke it with a whisper. You don't have to worry, he said, his voice suddenly dark. I won't let this treatment end. I looked up. The face peeking through his pitch-black hair was stiff, lost in thought. Matsuda-kun? As soon as I called him, he straightened up and turned back to me. No, it's nothing. He shook his head as if trying to smooth things over. Then, he returned to the machine and continued working as if nothing happened at all. Well, nothing good can come out of being too pessimistic about your symptoms. That's one case where your natural cheerfulness is actually helpful. Yep, my thinking is very flexible after all. Your head is flexible, that's for sure. You can't even remember your friends or family before you lost your memory, and yet you aren't even slightly disconcerted. But forgetting them is just like I never had them at all. That's why everyone I forgot, they really have nothing to do with me anymore. Those words again, Matsuda-kun winked for an awfully long time. If you keep saying things have nothing to do with you, you're gonna end up with nothing left aside. Oh, I'll be fine. I'll always have you, Matsuda-kun. I stuck my chest in pride. You're the only person I can remember, so as long as you're here, I won't get lonely. You probably linked me with the process of coming here to receive this treatment in your procedural memory. That's why you can remember me. No, that's not it at all. Yeah, I know, said Matsuda-kun, trying to calm me down before I became too flustered. He continued attaching suction cups to my face, stopping from time to time to scratch his chest, which I could catch a glimpse of through a gap in his dirty white shirt. Does he really know what I meant? He probably just said that to shut me up. I don't think he even believed me when I said I remembered him. But it's true. I don't remember him in the usual sense of the word remember, of course, but I didn't lie when I said I do. I remember Matsuda-kun. I forget him, and yet I remember. I'm not talking about our conversations or what we did together. For these kinds of memories, I have to rely on my notebook. Know what I remember is something much more special and important. It's not memories, but feelings. Not using my head, but using my heart. What I remember about Matsuda-kun is pure emotion. Every time I see him, I feel my the beat of my heart before my head even realized what's going on. The beat tells me one very important thing. For me, his very existence is precious, one of a kind. That's why, no matter how forgetful I am, I will never forget him. There's a connection deeper than memories between the two of us. For me, Matsuda-kun is special. He's extraordinary. He's a miracle. Shut up already, will you? I came back to my senses, confused. You heard me? I was about to jump out of the bed, but Matsuda-kun's pinned my head back down. You're gonna get the cord disconnected. What are you, human waste? He said cruelly, as if I tried disconnecting his cord on purpose. But I never said a word. Were you talking about how loud my heartbeat is? I can't help that. If my heart stops, I'd die. I wasn't talking about you. I was referring to the noise outside. Huh? Outside? Matsuda-kun turned up his chin and pointed to the window. When I listened intently, I could hear an unusual noise coming from outside. Jeering voices, angry voices, hooting voices, reactionary voices full of anger. The kind of voices that could make the earth rumble. It was an assembly of unpleasant voices that could make your face frown instinctively. What is that? It's the parade. They're getting louder every day. A parade? You don't mean that parade? Liar. You don't remember it at all. Matsuda-kun pinched my forehead and continued explaining. His face was grim. It's essentially a demonstration, but the teaching staff, or maybe I should say the old geezers in the steering committee, didn't like the sound of that word, so they decided to call it a stupid name like a parade. But isn't a parade the exact opposite of a demonstration? That's exactly why they chose that name. But why a parade? It's the guys from the preparatory school. Preparatory school? I've never heard of such a thing. Or have I? You don't remember? Of course. Well, your head is oversized, so I guess it can't be helped. Wait, calling a girl oversized is a sexual harassment! If this was the Edo period, you'd be beheaded by now. Eep! My head, which was on its way up from the bed, was pushed back down. Hope Speak Academy is not a traditional learning facility like other schools. They provide education for the talented, but at the same time they research that talent. The teaching staff aren't simple educators. They're also scientists who research human talent. But scientists are a bothersome bunch. The more they research, the more they want to research even deeper. Therefore, there's something they never have enough of. Do you know what that is? It's money. Oh, right! My chance to find the answer on my own was gone, so that's the least I could say. Up until recently, Hope Peak Academy was a small-scale facility that could survive on a government subsidiary and graduate donations. Their research was often blocked by a lack of resources, though. But the steering committee was not satisfied with the state of the research, so they instituted the preparatory school system in order to bring in more money. I nodded enthusiastically to show I was listening. The gist of it is that us super high school levels are affiliated with the main school, but there is now a separate educational facility attached to it, called a preparatory school. That school is located on the west quarter of the campus, while the main school remains here in the east quarter, so we don't actually intermingle much. I heard there's not much the same over there. They don't scout their students and rely on a regular entrance exam to choose among applicants. Their teaching staff is chosen the same way. Our teachers are the scientists who work and live at that school, while they have regular teachers coming from outside. So, it's just a regular high school, isn't it? Exactly. Nevertheless, there was a flood of applications. A brand name is a powerful thing. Matsuda-kun almost spat the words out. People didn't care that it was just a preparatory school. The prestigious Hope Peak Academy had finally opened its doors to the public. People are sheep. They're drawn to a name, and the school took advantage of that to get more money. Thanks to that, the school went through a sudden growth spurt. We suddenly have research buildings that can make any university jealous. No one was prepared for that. In just a year or two, Hope Peak Academy became a school of an entirely different scale. The power of the steering committee also grew accordingly. But that almost seems like a fraud. It doesn't just seem like one. Matsuda-kun's mouth twisted in a bitter smile. Right now, Hope Peak Academy is set up like a third world country's pyramid class system. The multitude of students in the preparatory school exists only to support the few super high school levels in the main one. It seems they have some kind of bogus system in place for exceptional students to transfer to the main school. But I've never heard of anyone actually succeeding. Our teachers probably don't think of any. Our teachers probably don't think any of them deserve it. That's not how educators should behave. You're right. But it's exactly how scientists do. They don't care about anything but their research subject. I'm just the same. In fact, It's just that their subject is human talent. But it's so unfair! I puffed my cheeks. Of course it is. If it wasn't, there wouldn't be any need for a demonstration, would there? But still. Matsuda-kun suddenly cut his speech short. His tone of voice changed to a cautious one. I don't think they could have set all this up on their own. It has to be the result of someone else's scheme. That's how I feel. Eh? Matsuda-kun narrowed his eyes and looked outside the window. His look was so grim that I hesitated to speak. Hey, ugly. After a short while, he turned back to me, as if remembering something. Write this conversation down properly in your notebook. Don't brush it off as having nothing to do with you. Those preparatory school students don't think much of us. I don't think they're gonna attack you or anything, but it's better to be cautious. Okay, I understand, as I replied. I noticed the suction cups stuck to my head and my face were making it difficult to move my mouth. I need you to stay still for a while. I don't mind if you sleep. Matsuda-kun stepped away from my line of sight. But I'm not sleepy at all, I replied in an insecure voice. Matsuda-kun's voice answered from the other side of the room. I can give you sleeping pills. A dozen should probably be enough. Isn't that a lethal dose? Are you sure it's alright? As soon as my uneasiness grew even deeper, Matsuda-kun appeared in front of me again. He was now wearing a school jacket on top of his dirty shirt. If something happens to my machines while I'm gone, you're dead. Are you going somewhere? I have a little business to take care of. Anyway, if something happens to my machines, you're dead. He was serious enough to repeat the warning twice. I wouldn't mind being killed if it's you who kills me. It would be troublesome for me. I hate gore. I don't think that was such a good quality for someone who studies the human brain, but I didn't say anything. Ah, in that case, if I stay here and wait like a good girl, let's go see a movie together later. A movie? You know, like that one. I flipped through the pages of my notebook, searching for memories about movies. Here's one. It's about two robbers, Harry and Marv, sneaking into the McAllister household. Are you talking about Home Alone? Oh, I love that movie! It seems you've forgotten, but you bugged me to see it with you before, and we did. Really? In that case, I continued flipping through the notebook, but couldn't find mention of any other movies. Seems I was particularly interested in that movie. I could blame myself all day, but it'd get me nowhere. Well, it's a masterpiece, so I'm sure it's still interesting even if you watch it again. It's certainly not a bad movie. It's not the kind of movie I'd want to watch again and again. So what kind of movie do you... Please don't ask me questions fit for the diary of a middle school girl. I felt his distasteful stare glaring down at me, but I didn't give up. Let's do it! If you pretend you're watching for the first time, it's gonna be fun! I need a little bit more in my notebook. Ah! According to this, I thought that the little boy who played the main character, Macaulay Culkin is there's a super cute boy in this movie. Isn't that exciting? And why exactly do you think that would excite me? Also, that actor isn't named as if he was a brand of laundry. We gotta read that again. Also, that actor isn't named as if he was a brand of lingerie. It's Macaulay Culkin. It says here that I thought he was so cute I wanted to adopt him. You only say that because you don't know how he looks today. He underwent quite a transformation. A transformation, huh? Matsuda-kun narrowed his almond eyes even more than usual and swiped his bangs away from his forehead. Just be a good girl and go to sleep. You know what? I think that's the first time, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's the first time Danganronpa actually mentioned something that's in the real world, like reality, like what we see today. I think that's the first time I've seen them do that. I could be wrong, but from my short memory that I have, I think that was the first time they've said something that is actually real in the game or in a book or something. Anyways, keep going. It seems he was tired of me trying to postpone his departure. Wait, don't go. Nevertheless, now panicking, I tried to stop him again. I don't want you to go. I'd be lonely. Don't leave me here alone. We haven't seen each other in a long time, have we? A long time? Matsuda-kun stopped in his tracks. Why do you think we haven't seen each other in a long time? I'm asking why you haven't seen each other in a long time. Matsuda-kun faced away from me as he spoke. His voice was tinted with pain. It made me feel anxious. I can tell by the rate my heart was beating, I think. So if you see me every day, your heart doesn't beat as fast when I'm near? No, that's not it. We did meet just yesterday, you know. We did? It's not surprising that you forgot. Matsuda-kun's back curled forward as if he was dejected. I guess you were just lying when you said I'm the only one you can remember. Wait! I'll remember in a second! In haste, I flipped through the pages of my notebook. I went through them all from back to back, but I couldn't find any memories of me and Matsuda-kun meeting the day before. It was a complete failure. When I looked away from the notebook, Matsuda-kun was already gone. I've been had. There was nothing more I could do about it. I guess there really is nothing I can do but sleep. Not that that's such a bad idea. At the very least, when I'm asleep, I can lose myself inside my dreams. I can escape this lonely world that doesn't have Matsuda-kun in it. I can probably even meet Matsuda-kun in his dreams. In my dreams. With that thought deep in my heart, I rolled to my side, careful not to disturb the cords all over my head, and sniffed the pillow that still had traces of Matsuda-kun's scent. I sniffed it as if I was a puppy, and rubbed my cheeks against it, purring happily. Then, I closed my eyes. As my vision blacked out, my other senses sharpened. Before long, the only thing remaining in my world was Matsuda-kun's scent. No, that wasn't the only thing. I could also hear voices, interfering with me and Matsuda-kun's private world, an assembly of emotional, unsettling voices. Anxiety washed over my entire body just by listening to them, so I blocked my ears in panic. It has nothing to do with me, after all. Nevertheless, I couldn't sleep. I felt like my body forgot how to. I want to fall asleep. I want to sleep and tide over this world that doesn't have Matsuda-kun in it. I want to meet him again. Matsuda-kun. 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 Stop! I don't want to say that anymore. And then, as I dreaming about Matsuda-kun, I slowly fell into a blissful sleep. Alright, well that was an interesting chapter, not gonna lie. I mean, she's really, I guess you could say, obsessed. Obsessed with this Matsuda-kun. So let's see what chapter 4 has to offer. A short while after leaving the laboratory, Yasuke Matsuda stood in front of a large door that exuded a solemn atmosphere and straightened his posture. What are you so nervous about? He wanted to mock himself, but at the same time I realized nervousness was inevitable. It was the first time he'd ever stepped into Hope's Peak Academy's inner sanctum, the staff building. It was the only building on the campus's east quarter that students were forbidden to enter, and sure enough, once he did, he ended up having to explain the situation to several teachers who stopped him along the way. That wasn't enough, though. His final destination was itself a special place, even inside this forbidden building. Yasuke Matsuda raised his head and stared at the door in front of him. It was a pretentiously decorated wooden door that gave him the feeling visitors weren't welcome. The metal plate set in it read, Hope's Peak Academy's Steering Committee Meeting Room. This was the inner sanctum's inner sanctum. Even the teaching staff could not just walk in uninvited. Nervousness really was inevitable for someone about to enter such a special room. But nevertheless, this really isn't like me. Matsuda cleared his throat, tried to cheer himself up before he ended up swallowed whole by the oppressing atmosphere. Then, he raised his fist and knocked twice on the door. This is Yasuke Matsuda from Hope's Peak Academy's 77th class, he announced, slowly pushing the heavy door open. Excuse me. The room was as different from a classroom as a room could be. The ceiling, pillars, and walls were excessively decorated in a way that Matsuda felt gloomy. He stepped forward, the sound of his footsteps swallowed by the thick carpet. We apologize for calling you here on such a short notice. The voice was surprisingly light and cheerful. It belonged to Hope Peak Academy's headmaster, Jin Kirigiri. Every time Matsuda saw the man, he couldn't help but be astounded how young he was. In his mind, a headmaster was a middle-aged man with white hair, a mustache, and a drab suit. Kirigiri, still in his 30s, was just too young for the job. Please sit down. It'd be easier to have a conversation that way. A large circular table stood in the middle of the room. Antique chairs were lined up all around it. Excuse me, said Matsuda as he sat on the nearest chair, placing him exactly across the table from Kirigiri. The moment he sat down, he felt several pairs of eyes staring intently at him. They belonged to 4 old men who sat around the table at set intervals. Every one of them wore a pitch-black suit, as if they were on their way back from a funeral. Their ties were the same color. Their appraising glare felt to Matsuda as if someone was breathing their hot breath down the back of his neck. Do you know who you are? The voice was rusty, and Matsuda couldn't tell which man it belonged to. You must be the members of Hope's Peak Academy Steering Committee. You have our sincere gratitude for all your help with that incident. I don't know what you're talking about. The wrinkles on the old man's face deepened. They didn't like dodging around the topic of the conversation. There's no need to be cautious here. We know everything, one of the old men said. You helped us with the interrogation of the student who first discovered the crime scene, didn't you? Said another. The student who first discovered the crime scene. The second Matsuda heard those words, his heart began to beat faster. He tried to hide it by asking a question of his own. Do you intend to try and get more information out of that student? Not at all. A different old man shook his head. This time, we're dealing with a different student. We have a problem, you see. A problem that someone with your skills can solve. We're looking forward for your help. He talked as if the matter was already settled. That was worrying. What if I refuse? A few seconds later of silence, one of the old men started to laugh. It was a quiet laugh at first, but soon the second, third, and then the fourth man joined, filling the room with scornful laughter. Their voices descended on Matsuda from every angle. So, Matsuda-kun, the laughter suddenly stopped. Do you really believe you have a choice in the matter? The old man spoke in a condescending tone of voice. That girl you've been treating, it seems she's on temporary leave from the school, yet there aren't any signs that she's gonna be cured. This time, it was Matsuda's wrinkles that deepened as he frowned. What are you trying to say? You are also still a student. We can't have you wasting your time on a dunce with no hope of recovery. His words weren't overflowing with contempt. The way we see it, we can't help extending a student's temporary leave when we don't even know when she'll be able to return. This faculty's purpose is to nurture talent. Those who are too much of a failure to use it should simply step down for the student's sake. That said, if you agree to help us, shut the fuck up, old man. What? Your dirty mouth talks too much. The room's atmosphere changed in a second. The air pressure jumped all at once. You bastard! Matsuda stood up and the old man froze. He looked at them as if they were worms. No, his stare was much more angry and full of contempt. He looked at them as if they were worms he was about to trample. Dunce? Failure? I should have warned you. I'm the only one who's allowed to make fun of her. No one else has any right to. Hey, what do you think you're talking? I told you to shut up! His tone really did shut them up. He continued speaking in a low voice. That girl, even when people make fun of her, she swipes it off because she thinks it has nothing to do with her. That's why I have to speak up for her. I won't be able to live with myself if I don't. To the ears of the steering committee members, his words carried an indescribable sense of intimidation. How can we be so overpowered by someone not yet in his 20s? They did not know the answer. They did not understand the power someone who possessed talent had. The power Hope Speak Academy called Hope. May I interrupt? A slow voice forced its way into the conversation. It was Kirigiri's voice. Matsuda turned his coercive stare towards him. It's just that I think it's time for me to say something. Kirigiri smiled bitterly and scratched his head. Despite the nervous atmosphere that filled the room, he seemed completely calm. Matsuda, having lost his momentum, closed his eyes slowly, let out a heavy sigh, and sat back down. As soon as he was done, Kirigiri continued in a quiet tone. Matsuda-kun, we are merely asking for a favor. Not a favor just for us. You can consider it as a favor to every student of Hope's Peak Academy. Would you please at least consider listening to what we have to say? Matsuda stayed quiet and looked at Kirigiri, unable to judge what the man's true intentions were. Kirigiri, on his part, tried his best to take back control of the situation. I won't ask you to do anything other than listen. If you decide to refuse, we will accept your decision. With the preliminaries done, he moved straight to the topic on hand. I probably do not have to explain to you about that incident, but we should probably still begin there anyway. Kirigiri cleared his throat, clasped his hands in front of himself, and continued. It's been a month, and we still can't believe what had happened. Such a gruesome incident taking place again inside Hope's Peak Academy. I still feel like we're living in a nightmare. But it really did happen, yelled one of the old men. 13 kids, screamed another. 13 victims, and the details of what happened are still unclear. Why did such a terrible thing happen in our school? When the screaming voices stopped, Matsuda said what has been on his mind. So, you never informed the police? Of course we didn't! What do you think would happen if we did? What would it solve? It's not a problem that can be taken care of by arresting a culprit. But what about the victims' families? We're taking care of that! Yet another old man yelled without skipping a beat. You don't have to worry about such things. Judging by the way he spoke, the academy had already taken measures for dealing with the families. They must have asked some favors from previous graduates. Many of them rose to high positions on the strength of the Hope's Peak brand. If that brand falls from grace, they will also lose it all. You're right. I shouldn't have to worry about that. So, what is it that you want me to do? This other student you were talking about? It must have something to do with this incident as well, right? We want you to extract information out of the student that will help clarifying the truth behind this incident, answered Kirigiri. Clarify the truth. Isn't that a contradiction? Didn't you decide to cover up the incident? The cover-up? Matsuda was the only student the faculty trusted with the secret. In exchange for his cooperation, he was awarded a large research grant and equipment for his lab. That was probably another proof that he was a true scientist. But that wasn't the only reason he agreed to cooperate. No one but Matsuda himself knew the other reasons. Yes, it does sound like a contradiction, doesn't it? Answered Kirigiri after a short hesitation. But this is a necessity. We strongly believe that hiding this incident is necessary, but there's too much we still don't know about. We can't hide something we don't completely understand. That's why we think we must find the entire story regarding what happened back then, in order to protect Hope's Peak Academy. This cover-up has to be perfect. Kirigiri said all that without the slightest sign of doubt. He would do anything to protect Hope's Peak Academy. He's just like me, isn't he? Matsuda thought. Sacrificing something to protect something else. That's exactly what I'm also doing right now. So, who is the student you want me to interrogate? Kirigiri licked his drip. Kirigiri licked his drips? Why was I about to say that? Kirigiri licked his dry lips and gave Matsuda a cautious answer. We didn't tell you this before, but other than the first discoverer of this crime scene, there are 2 additional survivors. 2 survivors? Sure enough, that was the first time Matsuda heard about them. They are indispensable for discovering the truth about the incident, of course. Had all been well, we should have questioned them immediately after we were done with the crime scene's discoverer. But because of certain circumstances, we couldn't do that. Circumstances? One of them has been in a coma since the incident. The other, thankfully, came out unhurt, but went missing soon after. We do not know where that student is right now. 1 comatose student and 1 missing student. The circumstances were indeed severe, but there was still a possibility. You want me to try and get information from the comatose student, don't you? Kirigiri nodded exactly. Finding the truth in order to hide it. It was certainly a twisted thing to do, but it was also very convenient for Matsuda. This is probably my chance to protect her. I understand, he said. He had no other choice. I'll see what I can do. Do you think you could do something? One of the old men quickly relaxed and tried to regain authority. It's still too early to tell. Depends on the student's exact condition. I'll try my best, in any case. Matsuda answered bluntly, and returned to face Kirigiri. But what about the missing student? You aren't going to just sit here and do nothing, are you? After a short silence, Kirigiri bent forward and looked straight into Matsuda's eyes. Is something worrying you? His gaze was sharp, and Matsuda felt as if it could read his innermost thoughts. Wanting to escape it, he retracted quickly. No, I was just curious. His voice was shaky, and he continued in an effort to hide it. I mean, the missing student is far too suspicious, isn't it? Don't you think they could be the culprit who killed 13 students and left 1 in a coma? The old men immediately started rustling, their whispers reverberating through the meeting room. Kirigiri alone kept his cool. It's just as you say. The way things look, that student is extremely suspicious. In that case what? Kirigiri interrupted forcefully. It just justifies covering up this incident even more. If we don't, it's going to be the end of the school. The end of the school? Matsuda was intrigued by Kirigiri's expression. Does that mean that the student who was gone missing is someone special? A certain name suddenly found itself floating in the back of Matsuda's mind. He had heard that name only in rumors and in occult stories he's always thought were urban legends. But if that person really exists, they may very well be involved in this incident. If that's the case, it all makes sense. It even makes sense calling this incident the worst incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history. It makes sense, but it's also terrible. A single drop of sweat fell down from Matsuda's temple as he whispered those words deep inside his heart.
Hope will never die!